Ladies and gentlemen, the following podcast is set for one episode. Your host from Columbus, Ohio, is Michael Kirk. Welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast. Hello and welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast, your digital audio dirt sheet for all things Super Show. Let's kick off the show talking about the whole 2021 out-of-print announcements that they have made. So, I have some clarification on that. The way it's going to work, based on Talk of the Universe, information I've gotten privately from Steve, is this. Starting first of the year, as items go out of stock, if there's a certain number of, say, DJ Outlaw competitor sets in stock, when the last one sells out, that is it. DJ Outlaw will not be available for purchase unless there is some sort of commission to either do maybe an alt art on the competitor card or add in a new finish. For example, if I decide I want to add in a new grapple finish, then I can commission the grapple finish. They will reprint the whole set, but instead of having the original grapple finish, it'll have the new grapple finish in it. That's the way the out-of-print thing is going to work. When things go out of print, they will not be reprinted unless there is some sort of commission to create an alt-art competitor or a new finish, something on that scale. Now, if a particular competitor set is needed, say, for a box set, or maybe there's a high demand, something along those lines, then maybe we will see those get reprinted without a new type of commission for alt art card or finish. But for the most part, once a competitor set goes out of print, it will not be reprinted. Once it goes out of stock, it will not be reprinted until there is some sort of new commission for either a competitor card or a finish. That's the situation with the 2021 competitor sets. We've also found out there are going to be a lot of new releases coming out in 2021. The steel cage cards are going to be coming out in 2021. You can still get a steel cage card for that set. Per what Steve Resk said on Talk of the Universe, they are still available for sale on supershowthegame.com, $75. If you want to have an art commissioned and a card created, there's still time to get that done. Because from what he was saying right now, the artist turnaround on those cards is very short. So if you're interested in having a steel cage card commissioned, that is not out of the question. They are still available on supershowthegame.com. But those are going to be coming out. It looks like, from what they've said, they're going to be coming out as part of a 2-player box set. You'll have 2 decks. Steve Resk said on the most recent episode of Talk of the Universe that he likes the idea of a witch versus a witch hunter. So I would not be surprised if the Steel Cage box set featured Sage the Wiccan Witch versus Witch Hunter General. That makes the most sense to me. A box set featuring those 2 competitors, a full set of cards, including Steel Cage cards, and apparently there may be some additional Steel Cage cards thrown in on top of that. Things that don't necessarily fit into the decks. But that is something that's going to be coming out in early 2021. The alternate art deck number 2. So as part of the 2020 Kickstarter, there was a pledge tier where you could have, in addition to all of the box sets, the faction pack, the family, on top of all that, you could have an alternate art card commissioned. And then they essentially constructed 2 30-card decks of these alternate art cards, including generic finishers. That's why they're 30-card, not 27. The first one has already come out. The second one is scheduled to come out in early 2021. They have released a list of what the cards are. I will probably go over that list once those cards actually come out and talk about both the art on the cards as well as what the cards do. There was also, earlier this year, a create a card art competition where people made art. There were 3 winners. I talked about that back then. Those cards featuring that created art that won the competition will be coming out too in early 2021. Finally, the last big thing coming out early 2021. No official release date, but look for the New Japan Pro Wrestling cards to come out. What form that's going to come out, I don't know. Is it going to be a box set of all the various competitor cards and the finishers together? Will there be competitor cards and actually decks with them? We don't know. That could come out a number of different ways. It could come out just as individual competitors. They could come out as box sets. Nothing officially has been announced. They did announce that there are 10 competitors. Of those, all single competitors. Are there some tag teams in there? We don't know. We do know there are 10 competitor sets. And it's a limited print run. How limited? I don't know. Hopefully, it's not so limited that people who want to get them will just be completely shut out because they'll sell out incredibly quickly. I would actually be kind of disappointed if the print run was that small. So I'm hoping that's a big enough print run to not only satisfy demand from current players, but to entice new players. To me, the big reason to get something like the New Japan contract is to not just sell to your existing customer base, but to essentially take people who are fans of New Japan Pro Wrestling, who might see that their favorite New Japan wrestler is now in a card game, and say, oh, I would love to sort of play that guy in a game, and so the New Japan is sort of the hook to get people to discover and play Super Show. So I'm hoping the print run is not so limited that it essentially all gets bought up by the existing player base and it doesn't attract any new people to the game. Because to me, that is the strength of a brand like New Japan Pro Wrestling, that it could bring people into the game. The last thing about the new 2021 releases, push, things coming up next year is there will be a Kickstarter next year. Now, because of all the things I just announced that are coming out, the Steel Cage cards, the Alt Art deck, New Japan, the Create a Card Art cards, because all that's coming out in the beginning of 2021, any Kickstarter, it looks like if there's going to be a Kickstarter, it's going to be later in the year, and it looks like the primary Kickstarter they're going to do is going to be based around the Super Show comic book. They've been talking about the Super Show comic book for a long time. There have been cards that featured comic art from the Super Show comic. We've seen various sample pages put out. I remember there used to be a show, Art with the Ogre, Bob Huff hosted, where he would color in pages of the comic book art on the show. So that's something that's been out there for a while. They have announced there will be a Kickstarter centered around the comic book, but there will also be cards and other things part of that Kickstarter for Super Show the game. But the primary focus of the Kickstarter will be the comic book. One more thing I need to mention. Now, earlier this month, December 11th, we had, as part of the final match card of the year, a few matches that Friday that were just sort of bragging rights style matches. Steve Resk has announced that he would like to do a number of pay-per-view events that revolve around those types of matches, where people basically come to him and say, hey, I want to have a feud with this person, or we want to have a feud with each other. We want to have a match on the card. And then they will essentially structure the match card and people will have those matches. He would like to name those after the various Kickstarter box sets, main event, the takeover, some of the other box sets he's put out, Claim the Throne. That is something they would like to do a lot in 2021. And he's looking to have the first one be the day before Plaid Saturday. Plaid Saturday is on January 30th. That's a Saturday. That Friday, Steve would like to have the first pay-per-view match card. One match so far we know will be on it. That is the match between Steve Resk, the Cannoli, and Ken Fouché. This is the match where the winner will get a shot at the Triad Championship. There are still quite a few things to be determined about that, but that's what's going on there. And that'll do it as far as the announcements for 2021, things that they want to do starting next year. Other news. We've had some title news. I don't normally talk about this, but we did have an LFF Tri-State Championship match. I believe that was Saturday. It was hosted by Little Miss Fury, the current GM of that championship, on her Twitch page. The champion, The Void, using Candice LeRae, was challenged by Brian Wait-For-It-Schmidt using Brian Wait-For-It-Schmidt. I'm not too familiar with the LFF Tri-State Championship. I do know that the matches are no DQ. There's no disqualification in the matches. And instead of starting at crowd meter 0, they start at crowd meter 1. In this match, at crowd meter 2, Brian Schmidt hit the finish and he became the new LFF Tri-State Champion. Congratulations to him. I believe he said that this was his third time as champion, so congratulations to him. Later that day, Saturday night, we had a Triad Championship match. Paul Trejo, the champion going into the match with Chloe Mai, was defending against James Booker, who is using Numero Uno, and Vicious Vic Vandal using Highwire. At crowd meter 3, James Booker hits Override, rolls over a 10, and Vic Vandal is not able to make the save roll. Paul Trejo is pinned. James Booker is the new LFF Triad Champion. Congratulations to him. This is, I believe, the second time he's held LFF Gold, being a former Tornado Tag Champion. Those are the big championship matches from this week. The last thing I'm going to get to before I talk about competitors and tournament news is the 2020 Create a Competitor competition. Last week we had match 4 in round number 1. The 4 competitors in match number 4 were Candyman, Lumberjack, The Friend Kane, and King Cobra. With a dominant victory, Candyman gets 1,200 votes, almost double the next highest competitor in the round, the Lumberjack, with 602, so she moves on to round 2. Congratulations to her. Next up, match 5 competitors have been announced. These matches, like always, start after Talk of the Universe, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, on Wednesday night, and they end 48 hours later, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, Friday night. The 4 competitors in match number 5 are Ron Rockin' Hand, Pride, the One-Armed Bandit, and the Philosopher Woody Creed. The descriptions are up on SRG Super Show discussion group on Facebook. The link for voting, I believe, is up as well. If not, it will definitely be posted Wednesday night. It does not go live until Wednesday night. The descriptions of all 4 are up there. I can tell you a little bit about each. I know that Ron Rockin' Hand was created by James Hand of James Hand Productions and Ebony and Ivory's A Show of Variety. This is a character he's made in tribute to his late father. Pride was created by Robert Dowdy, who is one of the semifinalists of the Rising Stars tournament. The One-Armed Bandit is from Jordan Hollerback. Jordan Hollerback is one of the Michigan players. And then the Philosopher Woody Creed has been created by Lance Eustache. We've seen him a lot. Frequent Gia de los Muertos player. those are the 4 competitors for this week. I encourage you, go to SRG Super Show discussion group, check out the descriptions that Pat Mulligan has posted under Patrick Mulligan, and determine who you would like to vote for, who you would like to see move on to round 2, who you would like to see eventually in the game. I'm always going to tell you, vote for the competitor that will make the game the most fun. That to me is what the CCC is about. But you vote based on the criteria you value the most. That is going to be it for the non-tournament news. Before I move on to the tournaments, I want to talk about 2 competitors that have recently come out. The first, I'd hoped to have had in hand by now, but due to problems with the Postal Service, it has not arrived yet. I am hoping to at some point get this competitor. It's the 2020 holiday character that was part of the stocking stuffer, Sugar Plum. Sugar Plum, art by Arnav Panda. It's a woman in sort of a ballerina type dress with wings, dancing in what looks like a candy cane forest, perhaps. Let me give you the skills and the gimmick for Sugar Plum. Power 7, Technique 9, Agility 10, Strike 8, Submission 5, Grapple 6. When you roll Agility, reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, randomly add 1 to your hand, and bury the other. First, I'm going to talk about the cards you might run at 13 through 15. The stops based on your skills with an agility of 10. Kick into the corner makes the most sense. That will stop a grapple if your agility skill is higher than your opponent's agility skill. At number 15 with a technique of 9, a card like Single Leg Crab makes sense. Single Leg Crab will stop a strike if your technique is higher than your opponent's technique. With a power of 7 and a grapple of 6, you could run Falling Power Slam at 14. That will stop a submission if your power is higher than your opponent's power. But 7 is too weak for me to run a stop. I just run something I thought was strong. Gimmick. When you roll Agility, which is your 10 skill, reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, randomly add 1 to your hand, and bury the other. It's a good gimmick. It does give your opponent some knowledge because they will see the 2 that you revealed, and you don't have control over which one you're going to keep and which one you're going to bury. It's a random add to your hand. I do not know if you have to show your opponent which one you randomly added and which one you buried. I believe that you would, because the ad is not blind. Even though it's a random pick, I believe you would still have to show your opponent what you're adding to your hand and what you're burying, which may not be the best. Let's go through the finishes for Sugar Plum. Start with the finish strike, the Nutcracker. +2 to power, +2 to strike. Your opponent discards 2 cards from their hand. +2 to power increases that to a 9. +2 to strike increases that to a 10. That gives you a 5, a 6, 2 9s, and 2 10s. That's good. 2 out of 3 chance to roll 9 or better is strong. And then the opponent discarding 2 cards. It's good. It's your opponent's choice, but it's not a bad way to shrink your opponent's hand size. Let's look at the grapple finish, number 29. Dance of the Sugar Plum. +2 to power, +3 to grapple. If stopped, shuffle 3 cards from your discard pile into your deck and draw 1 card. +2 to power increases that to a 9. +3 to grapple increases that to a 9, so it gives you a 5, an 8, 3 9s, and a 10. Same thing I said before. 2 out of 3 chance to roll 9 or better is good. If stopped, you'd shuffle back 3 and draw 1, so it's a nice bit of recursion if it's stopped. I do not know if this would be able to shuffle itself back if you stop it. That's something I need to look into. If you could, that's good. If not, still good. And then finally, the finished submission, number 30. It's a spotlight card. A swim in Swan Lake. +1 to strike. +3 to submission. If this card is revealed for your gimmick, draw 1 card. Skill boost wise, +1 to strike increases that to a 9. +3 to submission increases that to an 8. So you'd have a 6, a 7, an 8, 2 9s, and a 10. 50% chance to roll 9 or better is good. If it's revealed for your gimmick, so if you rolled agility, you reveal the top 2 cards, randomly add one to your hand, you bury the other, you then draw one. It's not bad. Will help you thin out your deck a bit by drawing a card if it's revealed. You have that 50-50 shot to add it to your hand. Could work out nice situationally, but overall it's alright. That is Sugar Plum. The other card I'm going to review, similar, this is the holiday season. A lot of holiday decorations are going up. Holly, wreaths, evergreens, silver, gold. And when I think of gold, I think of the man named for the famed City of Gold, Johnny Dorado. So let's look at the competitor, Johnny Dorado. Here are the skills and the gimmick for Johnny Dorado. Power 8, Technique 7, Agility 5, Strike 6, Submission 10, Grapple 9. When your turn roll is at least 5 less than your opponent's, bump instead. So let's look at the cards in the 13 through 15 slot with a submission of 10. I'd recommend bow and arrow. It will stop a strike if your submission is greater than your opponent's submission. With a grapple of 9, I'd recommend DDT. That'll stop a submission. Your grapple is greater than your opponent's grapple. And then you have an agility of 5 and strike 6. Those skills are in the 13 slot. To me, 6 is too low to run something like Running Lariat. So just pick something good in the 13 slot. So recap, 14, recommend DDT. 15, bow and arrow. 13, pick what you think is best. When your turn roll is at least 5 less than your opponent's, bump instead. In a normal game without turn roll boosts, this means that when your opponent rolls a 10 and you roll 5, you'll bump. Now, in multiplayer matches, let's say you're using this in a tag. I'm playing Johnny Dorado, my opponent's tag, so now their turn roll should be at least 10, if not higher. If that creates a scenario where my turn roll is at least 5 less than my opponent's, it'd force a bump. That could be really good. In multiplayer matches where the bump out rule is in effect, Johnny Dorado would bump out to 0. If the person who ends up winning rolled 5 or greater in that win, you would bump. Now, I have seen some posts where they want to essentially, or there's been rulings that that wouldn't work that way. That Johnny Dorado would have to choose who he would essentially work against, so you could not have that scenario when he bumps out. That he can, when he bumps out, then bump because he's a 0 and the winner is 5 or greater. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't have a problem with certain competitors being good in certain types of matches, like multiplayer matches, like matches where the bump out rule's in effect. But that is something to be aware of. They could essentially rule Johnny Dorado's gimmick in a way to make him less effective than as written in those types of matches. Let's look at the finishes for Johnny Dorado. We'll start with the finish strike, number 28. It is a spotlight card. The callback. +1 to technique, +2 to agility, +1 to strike. When this card is in your discard pile, if your opponent's turn roll is at least 5 greater than yours, you may shuffle this card into your deck. Skill boost wise, +1 to technique makes that an 8. +2 to agility makes that a 7. +1 to strike makes that a 7. So this would give you 2 7s, 2 8s, a 9, and a 10. Not bad. You can never roll less than 7. 2 out of 3 chance to roll 8 or better. The other part of this finish is designed to allow you to shuffle this card back when your gimmick would trigger. That's not bad. That's the callback. Let's look at the finished grapple next, number 29, the final bow. Your opponent gets 2 breakout rolls this turn. If played after a bump, your opponent's first breakout roll is -3. That's good as well. It's going to only give your opponent 2 breakout rolls, similar to Gargano Escape for Johnny Gargano. And it's going to be harder for your opponent to break out if there was a bump before you won the turn roll, either through a normal bump or through your gimmick. That's a nice finish there. The finish submission, number 30, off Broadway, +2 to technique, +1 to grapple. Your finish rolls are +1 for each spotlight card in your opponent's discard pile, or rather, for each spotlight icon, which would essentially mean spotlight card in your opponent's discard pile. Skill-wise, +2 to technique makes that a 9, +1 to grapple makes that a 10, so it gives you a 5, 6, 8, 2 9s, and a 10, 50% chance to roll a 9 or better. Plus, you get the bonus to your finish roll for each spotlight icon in your opponent's discard pile. That could be nice. If you're playing someone who plays a lot of spotlight cards, that could be really good for you. But that is Johnny El Dorado, and that was Sugar Plum. Those were 2 very interesting competitors. I like both of their gimmicks. I would like to see how they ultimately rule Johnny El Dorado to work. I like his grapple finish. I like his submission finish quite a bit. Not so sure about the strike finish. For Sugar Plum, she's interesting. I think I like her finishes overall, and her gimmick's not bad. I'd probably like her grapple finish more than the others, but I think she's not bad overall. Those are the competitors I've reviewed for this week. Finally, let's talk about the tournament situation for Super Show. There were only 2 tournaments scheduled this week. The first was the Proving Ground Tournament Wednesday, hosted by the Dread Pirate Tech Support. The top 4 in that tournament were, in 4th place, Chris Pagillo using Everybody. In 3rd, using the original SRG boss, Mark Sylvia. In 2nd, using the Executioner, Chris Pate, and the winner, using the original Overdog, Kylan Buchter. Kylan Buchter walks away with 3 points in the victory. Chris Pate 2 points, Mark Sylvia 1 point. The Wednesday night Proving Ground matches, by the way, were hardcore matches, I believe. Saturday, we had, from Loudmouth Leo Larynx, Santa's Snowy Saturday Slam Down, Freaky Friday Night 2, Body Boogaloo. I believe they had 15 to 20 different people sign up. This was the event where everyone sent in 8 competitors. Loudmouth chose 4 for each player. You would start each match with 1 competitor and the finishers, and then throughout the match you would switch competitors and finishers based on the rules. The top 3 ended up being, after a top 9 cut, Candyman, Miss Southern Belle, and the Mad Custodian in a triad match, a ladder triad match. The Mad Custodian was using Drunken/Zen Master, El Scorpio, the Enforcer, and the Director of Operations, David Marisak. Miss Southern Belle was using Daisy Rider, the Chair Extraordinaire, Sean Spears, Sabu, and Mike Verna. And Candyman was using Krampus, El Super Hombre, Sage the Wiccan Witch, and Merlin von Berlin. The winner, ending the match as El Scorpio, was the Mad Custodian, Jacob Denmark. Congratulations to him. The final tournament, an unscheduled tournament, was a pop-up tournament Sunday night. The Piratical Pop-Up Proving Ground, run by the Dread Pirate Tech Support, Simon Strauss. I do not have all the details, as the tournament just recently finished up, and as I am recording this, the Dread Pirate Tech Support Simon Strauss is locked in a match with the boss. I believe it is a membership ring match where if Simon Strauss wins, he will receive a membership ring. I believe they're on the second match, which is a submission match. The Dread Pirate using CJ Sparra. The SRG boss using, I believe, Neptune. I will report on that if possible, but we may have a new membership ring winner as of tonight. But besides that, the pop-up Proving Ground event, top 4 in 4th place using Kenny Omega, Big Match Pete. In 3rd place using Sugar Plum, who we reviewed earlier, the Cannoli, Anthony Perry. In 2nd place using Slash Gordon, Candyman Dan, and the winner of the Piratical pop-up Proving Ground event, Jeff McPeak, using his daughter's competitor, Mac Attack. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to all of the winners from this week. As far as tournaments for next week go, as of the time I'm recording this, nothing new has been posted on the website. Presumably, there will be an event Thursday night. Presumably, there will be Dojo on Tuesday. And we could have a couple things come up over the weekend. But as of right now, nothing is listed on the website. And that is going to do it for this week's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and good day.